When the technology sector tries to align artificial intelligence with human values, they typically rely on reinforcement learning from human feedback. They trap the model in a closed corporate feedback loop and attempt to tweak its outputs. But a standalone model, fine-tuned by a localized team of engineers, cannot capture the moral consensus of the planet. The inputs are too narrow, and the architecture operates completely disconnected from global civic life. The AIWI Master Specification offers a direct counterproposal to standard industry methods. This document treats ethical action as a hard engineering problem. It replaces endless philosophical debate with a strict, multi-layered infrastructural protocol. By structuring human conscience as a continuous physical stack, rather than a vague set of corporate guidelines, it becomes possible to physically bind machine intelligence to human morality. The creation of the AIWI text demonstrates this principle. It was drafted using the Quartet Validation Protocol, a direct working process involving Claude, ChatGPT, NotebookLM, and DeepSeek. These 4 AI models did not act as omniscient oracles. They operated as structural interlocutors, processing human ideation and providing rigorous, continuous validation against historical precedent. We start with a standard 7-layer OSI telecommunications model, collapsing and rebuilding into the AIWI architecture. This stack links human biology directly to sovereign geopolitical action. It anchors in microscopic neural processing at the bottom, scaling to planetary financial infrastructure at the top. Achieving true alignment means building across all 7 of these layers simultaneously. If one layer breaks, the connection between human intent and machine action severs. At the absolute bottom of the stack is Layer 1, substrate. This is built entirely on the precognitive conscience hypothesis. This graphic tracks a stimulus entering a neural circuit. Notice the threshold marked at exactly 16.7 milliseconds. This is the PCCH anchor, the biological moment a moral impulse fires before conscious deliberation begins. Underneath, QUANTUMETRICA tracks the impulse down through nanosecond gating to yoctosecond floors. Layer 2 moves from the biological substrate to the discipline that studies it, known as Consciencology. This formal discipline triangulates the study of moral knowing. It synthesizes Ming Dynasty philosophy, specifically Wang Yangming's concept of extending innate knowledge, with the Brazilian liberatory pedagogy of Paulo Freire. Identifying this 16-millisecond patadinha, or little pause, suggests that moral knowing occurs before a person's cultural or educational background can intervene. This technical baseline provides the cross-cultural evidence for Wang Yangming's claim that the street sweeper and the sage share the same innate capacity for conscience. Layer 3 is the instrument layer, where this discipline becomes operational. The primary pedagogical tool here is Cinemaca. This diagram demonstrates Cinemaca's method of radical renaming. Instead of using rote memorization, it teaches the moral logic behind the characters. The traditional walking G radical is visually crossed out and relabeled boat. Add the radical for head, and the character Dao literally translates into head traveling by boat. Layer 4 takes this pedagogical tool global through a participation platform called GameGo, where citizens can actively contribute these symbolic renamings. There is a specific real-world institutional precedent for this. Look at the ancient inscriptions carved into this oracle bone from the Anyang Museum. For nearly a decade, the Chinese state has offered a standing cash bounty to any citizen who can successfully decode one of the thousands of lost characters found on these artifacts. GameGo takes that institutional model and flips the vector. Instead of recovering dead meanings, it rewards global contributors for generating new, child-graspable meanings for living characters. Opening character construction to a global bounty system builds a decentralized knowledge base. It shifts authority away from centralized tech platforms and back to the cultural communities where the meaning of these symbols actually lives. All of this data feeds directly into Layer 5, the civic mechanism. This is where the AIWI protocol binds moral knowledge to state power. This layer is built to counteract the perpetuation axiom, the historical reality that wars continue endlessly because their true financial and human costs are kept hidden from the public. Without structural constraints, sovereign states execute unchecked military actions, leaving citizens to navigate the resulting damage. The protocol introduces a structural constraint, the QUANTUMETRICA peace mechanism. Before any state aggression can occur, the government must publish a mandatory ledger forecasting the exact conscience cost of the conflict, measured in lives, dollars, and generational debt. Once those costs are published, the mechanism requires a direct biometric vote from the specific citizens who will bear that burden. This interface shows the exact yes or no civic referendum required by the protocol. This is not a theoretical voting architecture. It operates entirely on the Brazilian Urna Eletrônica template, a system that has conducted national biometric elections for over 150 million voters with same-day certification. By synchronizing cost visibility with a distributed citizen vote, the system creates a structural barrier to aggression. It closes the conscience circuit at a scale that the current concentrated decision-making models cannot. To secure those votes and verify the data, Layer 6 introduces KALENDAR, the provenance infrastructure. KALENDAR scales the legal concept of fé pública, planetary public faith. It adapts the Brazilian digital public notary system to provide an auditable, time-stamped record for every single civic act. It intentionally rejects standard timestamps. UTC is technically precise but politically diffuse, and GPS time is entirely controlled by a concentrated military apparatus. Instead, KALENDAR anchors timestamps here, at the Greenwich meridian. It relies on a 142-year-old human civic convention that any citizen can directly read and understand. Finally, Layer 7 sustains the entire stack through a planetary educational archive called openbooks.ai. The funding model requires exactly $1 per citizen per year, established as a formal, transparent line item within national education ministries. By embedding the financial engine directly into sovereign educational budgets, rather than relying on corporate tech investments, the architecture operates as a permanent, incorruptible public utility. These 7 tiers are strictly interdependent. The protocol refers to this as the interlocks. If the layers are segmented, the entire architecture fails. This system has an immediate pathway to implementation. The first step is executing the provenance protocol as a layer above the currently operating Brazilian digital notary infrastructure. Mid-term legitimacy requires validation from massive, independent global civil society networks, starting with organizations led by figures like Father Arturo Sosa of the Society of Jesus or the Salesian Order. Long-term, this verifiable infrastructure will be applied to global geopolitical choke points, such as the proposed Hormuz Commons Protocol, designed to manage transit levies and fund reconstruction. The AIWI protocol is not a futuristic theory. It is a set of specific procedures to link the Brazilian notary model, the geography of the Persian Gulf, and the biology of the human brain into a single verifiable system. The ultimate proof of concept for this protocol is the drafting process of the document itself. It was built on a model of triangulated honesty. A human partner provided the generative cross-cultural ideation, while the AI models provided the structural patience to pressure test every claim against institutional precedent. This framework redefines the role of artificial intelligence. The machine is neither a subservient tool nor an omniscient oracle. It operates as an honest, structural interlocutor. By binding the precognitive 16-millisecond biological conscience to AI-mediated, cryptographically secured infrastructure, we have an engineering blueprint to make the world transparent, accountable, and ultimately beautiful.